the word defense. Defense, and I think of football. I think of like a stressful situation if you're a cheering fan, and you get the crowd rallying together, defense, defense, and it's like you're trying to build up the team to stop the offense that's going to maybe sway the game and change the tide, and our team will get a loss if we're not having a strong defense. Back in the day when I played football, we were known as the Orange Crush, off of the Denver Bronco defense. We had orange uniforms just like the NFL team, and we were called the Orange Crush because we were a crushing defense. And my coach always said, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. Do you guys want to be champions? And so we worked at defense. We worked at building a very fast, strong defense that would be able to intercept balls, turn over the ball. We were very vigilant in attacking the offense in a way that we would cause turnovers. And so I thought of that in the recovery sense of what is a good defense? Is it my job to defend? Is it my job to be in defense of the attacks of the enemy that are coming at me? And then what actually am I defending? What am I defending against? If I don't know what the enemy is and I don't know what that looks like, what am I actually defending against? Like, am I just like in a dark room with a blindfold on and things are hitting me and I'm just like blocking like that? That's not a good defense. I thought of the phrase, a good defense is better than being offensive. And it kind of puts me into the next point is when I'm being defensive, I can actually be offensive to the world around me and push people away. So what I've really come to understand and really what I wanted to talk about is what am I defending and how do I go about doing that? And so I'm going to read a little bit of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is where all 12-step material has come from. This is a manual on how to stop playing God, if you will. And there's a process of action to that we go under to actually relinquish our job as playing God to give that to the care of God. And so when I read this book, it's on page 43 at the bottom. It says once more. So basically, one more. I'm going to tell you this one more time. And when anybody ever told me something more than once, it was typically like my dad or a teacher. I'm not going to tell you again. I've already told you once. I'm going to tell you again. And so typically it's very important and I should be listening. So no different than here. It's like one more time. Here we go. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink or shot of adrenaline or overeating or porn, whatever it is, you fill in the blank, except in a few rare cases. And so I can always remember the few rare cases that I didn't have that first drink. So what am I defending? I'm defending against the first drink. That's what the defense is all about. Because I have a not only physical problem. So when I put this substance in my body, it produces a craving for more. Kind of just like salt water when you're abandoned on from a ship and you're in a life raft. The last thing you want to do is drink the salt water, but all you see is life-giving water. As soon as you start drinking, your body has a reaction of it has to get rid of this salt in my body, so it has to do it by dilution. And it takes water from your body, dilutes the salt, and you pee it out. And so you cannot drink enough salt water for your body to dilute the salt, and you actually die faster. And that's what's happening in my body. I'm drinking or entering something in my body that has an abnormal reaction that produces a craving for more. So you might have that with adrenaline. When adrenaline hits you, it produces a craving for more because your body doesn't break it down properly. Food and pornography or whatever the substance is, it produces a chemical reaction, and your body's trying to Your body's having an abnormal reaction, which produces a craving for more. So that's the physical. The physical doesn't even come in play if I never put the first one in. So what's the other problem here is a mental problem. The mental problem is what they're saying. We don't have, at certain times, there's no effective mental defense against the first drink. So the first drink's the real problem. Why do I take the first drink? The physical part is a moot point if I never take that first drink. Why do I always go back to it? Why in a week or 3 weeks? When I have enough consequences that really are motivating me to never do this again. I am so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm so sick of overeating. I'm so sick of these relationships, this codependency, the drug addiction, all of this stuff. I hate being in this condition. And I swear up and down, and I last for 2 weeks, I last for 2 months, I last for 2 years. Why do I go back to it? Well, it's the mental defense that I really have no defense over. That's where my problem is in the first one. When we go to page 20, I wrote some notes, 24, we talk about this again, the power of choice in drink. That's a fact that most of us have lost, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power to choose in drinking, whether we drink or not. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. So this can't be changed by behavioral management. We are unable at times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory and suffering and humiliation even after a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So isn't that bizarre that we actually have a problem that we really don't have a defense against? On page 42, they had said that though I did raise it a defense, it would one day give away before some trivial reason. And it happens time and time again. If you have that experience, you had a mental defense. You said no, but then a year later, you're right back to where you started. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're defending. That's what we need the defense against, is the first drink. The second and the 80th drink don't even matter if I never have the first drink. And so the big book talks about our mental defense is halfway down. There is a complete failure of this kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on the stove. It's like, imagine if you kept doing something over and over again, like putting your hand on a hot stove. And that's the reality of what we're doing in any addiction. It's like we have this sense of ease and comfort. We think of addiction, and I've heard it said for years that addiction is a disease of ease and comfort. It actually isn't. It's an illusion that it's ease and comfort. It says in our book that it brings a sense of ease and comfort. Oblivion and all the things that addiction does actually doesn't give me ease and comfort. It's this illusion that it does. Kind of like putting your hand on a hot stove. It detracts me from all of my problems. I got this problem that I burnt my hand on the stove. It's kind of like the problem in the big book where it talks about the jaywalker. The jaywalker keeps jaywalking, and it's such a ridiculous story. But this is what I'm defenseless again, is putting my hand on the hot stove, jaywalking and getting hit by a bus, even though I still have repercussions from the last time I jaywalked. I keep doing the same thing over and over again. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, fill in your blank, they have probably placed themselves beyond human aid. So really what we're saying is that there is a problem that you can't solve. The solution is defense, but you can't even defend yourself from that. And so that's kind of where the tension of this problem really has a fulcrum of like, well, if I can't defend myself from the real problem, then what am I going to do? On page 43, backing up again, it says, my defense must come from a higher power. My defense must come from God. That's what I'm defenseless against. And so if I can't defend myself from the first drink, from the mental obsession, from the issue that has been tormenting my life and the life of the people around me that I love the most, then I really have to be on a team that I really have no absolution that I can do this on my own. So just like that football team, imagine if I was against, as much as the crowd is cheering for me, defense, and I have a whole team coming at me, and they would just run. They don't even have to come up with a big playbook. There's 13 other people or 14 other people on the field against one person, and so I need the team that is coming from a higher power, coming from God. I need God's team and God's army to actually defend myself. I get to participate in that. I get to practice the spiritual disciplines and enter into a relationship with God. I get to be a partner in his army on his field. I get to be a participant in what we're doing as a team, but I'm not the team. And so how do I get God to be my defender? Well, when it comes to LifeLab or any 12-step program, we don't worship the steps, but they're the guide to who we worship, and that's God. And so when we go through the steps, it actually teaches us and leads us into being emptied of self. So what is self? Well, that's where my expectations are. That's where my ambitions are. That's where my pride and self-esteem, my ego are. This self being created by my family of origin and all the experiences that I've had in my life. And for a lot of us, it's this disconnect and fear that has created the life that I have. And so I can't be full of God and full of self at the same time. So basically the program of LifeLab and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and a lot of I would say that a lot of the 12-step fellowships in my experience have gone into a secular route. And so the design of the 12 steps is to actually lead somebody into being emptied of self so that they can be filled with God. And so the process, it's so easy to try to get caught up in a process, but we don't worship that process. We worship the God that it takes us to. And so as a partner, what are the things that I get to be a part of? What is my role in being on this team? Well, on page 89 of the big book, it talks about helping others. On page 63, stay close to him and do his work well, not my work. Service work is typically defined as doing work for somebody else their way. So many times I can do service work my way. Like, this is the way this should be done. I know I'm doing it for you, but I'm pretty high skilled and I just want to do it this way. It's more effective, more efficient. Do I do that with God? Or am I even connected enough to God to actually know what his work is? I just had a guy that I've been working with, and he had a couple little relapses, and he's on fire, and he's going to meetings every day, at least one, and he's involved in the program, and he's involved in a workshop, and he's doing all these things, and he had a couple little relapses, and he never missed a meeting, and his fire was still there, but he's like, I don't get it. Like, I am doing everything. And I said, so do meetings keep you sober? He's like, why are you asking that? Because obviously not. I go, well, what's the point of meetings? What's the point of doing all the 12-step work if that's not keeping you sober? That's crazy. You must be missing something. And he goes, I am missing something. What am I missing? And I said, well, you should take that to prayer and meditation. He's like, why did I know you were going to say that? Well, because you work for God. And so if you're staying close to him, then you know what his work is. How are you serving? How are you being his hands and feet? How are you being the light of the world around you? Or are you just adding these things into your life? Like maybe you're like the obsessive. Remember Saturday Night Live? It was Adam Sandler, the fresh pepper. It was like, are you the fresh pepper guy? You're just fresh pepper, fresh pepper. Everybody needs a fresh pepper. And it's like you're just adding stuff to your life. You're not doing anything. You're just adding pepper for the sake of adding pepper. I said, so through prayer and meditation, how are you being a service to God? Checkmate, right? How are you being a service to others? What are you staying close to him and doing his work well? What is his work? Oh, right now he's wrestling. I said, you just gotta get close to him and do his work well. Well, how do I do that? Well, through prayer and meditation, through the process that you're going on. But I just said, like, just after we finish this call, pray and ask. And you will, if you're a child of God, you will understand that he wants you to do work for him and be his representation. So the next day there was a call that came in, and it was a business deal and a business guy that he's been associated with, and they get talking about recovery. And this guy's a multi-million-dollar business owner, and one thing leads to another, and they got the same thing in common, but the other guy's not in recovery. And so now my guy's in being a service to others, because he's more focused on not just working, but being a representation of God and doing his work. And it made me realize at the beginning of my recovery, I had that moment of going, I can't stay sober. I've been doing all the meetings. I'm meeting with my sponsor. I'm doing the steps, and I still have these couple little relapses. I'm like, what is missing? And God showed me, he showed me a message, a pastor saying, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. And I was like, that seems like great. And I want to believe that. So I'm going to quit my job. You got me sober. Now get me a job if I need one. And I just went volunteering everywhere. And after 6 months of food getting dropped off at our door, having to go to the food bank a little bit, like being like not getting paid, but getting paid spiritually, the door opened for me to work at an overnight shift at a care home for mentally ill guys. It's something that I have nothing on my resume about. God opened the door for me to do this. And I remember I was only 3 months sober. Like I had relapsed 3 months ago, and I was full of shame. I'm like, I'm not qualified to do this. God can't use me here. And the first training day was so chaotic for me. Like I'd never experienced anything like it. I couldn't believe like this is a job that I'm not qualified. Like I'm not qualified to do this job. And then they said, okay, well, we'll need your criminal record, and here's the keys to the med cabinet. And it was all old people that ran it, like older people. And for some odd reason, older people never throw out pills. Like we got to keep them for something. And I'm like, there is enough tranquilizers in here to kill like a wild herd of elephants in Tibet. Like, you're giving me the key to this? And I had this responsibility over 12 beautiful God's children with mental disabilities that I can't even understand. I get to regain my sanity. They never do, unless there's a powerful miracle. And every day they look out the window waiting for John Ruby to come to work. And as soon as I come in, they're like, oh, what are we eating today? What are we doing later? And I felt such a responsibility to these guys. It helped me stay sober, because I knew if I picked up, I wouldn't make it to work on Monday. And I wanted to be around God's children doing God's work, because it kept me close to him. And God defended me from the first drink, from the first pickup, he removed the mental obsession that brings me back to the first drink, and he is my defender. You can't defend yourself. That's the trick. It's not your job to defend yourself. It would be just as foolish as defending your end zone by being the only person out there. That's how ridiculous it would be. You can't do it. You need God to do it for you. You get to be a partner in it, and you get to be a witness of it. And then your job is to stay close to him and do his work well and help others. So wherever you are in your recovery, whether it's a week, a month, or 5 years, are you staying close to him? And do you even know what his work is? And if you're new at this, start serving other people. I don't know where and how, but there are lots of opportunities to go volunteer and serve sandwiches and get in the grill of God's children that are suffering with something that maybe you have suffered with. So I just leave you with that of the Orange Crush defense. God is our defender. We are his children. He is the adult. He has the responsibility, and we get to be his representation in the playground. And so may God defend you in a mighty way today. Amen.